It's that time of year again. My sixth annual winter outlook is here, but before I get into my predictions for this winter across the state of Oregon, I want to go back on my accuracy from last season. These are temperature charts beginning last October through this past April for both Portland and LeGrand, my two main data sets from last season for the Willamette Valley and Grand Ronde Valley, and temperatures were a big strong suit from my outlook last season. I didn't expect it to be quite as warm last October, but I made the point that I had the chance to be mild and that we wouldn't see above normal precipitation until we hit November or December, and that happened east of the Cascades in November. In fact, more than an inch above normal across the Grand Ronde Valley. Not overly wet though at all west of the Cascades until December, which actually matches my headline of 1 to 2 inches above normal precipitation, although only for Portland, as east of the Cascades started to lack that moisture approaching the new year, although Portland clocked in at 1.99 above for December, so I call that a forecast check. I expected those slightly above normal temperatures and precipitation to continue into the first 15 days of January. That's exactly what happened. We actually saw anywhere between 4 to 5 degrees above normal temperatures, with more of those slightly above normal precipitation at Portland, although slightly below into LeGrand. But the back half of the month and into February, we actually saw anywhere from a half an inch to an inch and a half below normal precipitation, which really matched that trend that I expected into February with 1, 2, 3 degrees below normal. I expected the first snowflake across the Grand Ronde Valley for October. That actually did happen on my doorstep up at my place at 3,200 feet in the northern Blue Mountains on October 24th. The official Union station actually picked that up on the 25th. We didn't officially get a dusting of snow at PDX until December 1st, but I would say that this is an accurate prediction west of the Cascades because Eugene actually picked up its first dusting of snow on November 6th. And heading into the final dusting of the season, I expected that to be west of the Cascades in March, east of the Cascades in April, and that's exactly what happened. In fact, Union picked up that last snowflake April 20th. Portland did so on March 25th, and I made a big point with my set of analog years from last year that I had pretty strong evidence that between late winter and spring we would transition out of our third consecutive La Niña and get right into enso neutral even before winter ended, and that exactly happened. In fact, between the months of January and March, and I made the point that we had absolutely no chance to see less snow than normal east of the Cascades. I made a big point about that. In fact, my mean was about 67 inches for Wallowa. Wallowa picked up 61 with 70 out towards Cove, so that was an absolute forecast check. And although I didn't quite capture the severeness of how cold we would get into March, we did in fact become the coldest month as I expected, but man, we were 3 to 6 degrees below normal for much of the state. And what happened that I just did not do very well? Precipitation was a big part of that. I really thought with my analog years showing a warm and wet December, and that just did not happen. The warmest, like I said, was October, 5 degrees above normal, give or take. And then we saw 1, 2, 3, maybe even as much as 4 inches of precipitation above normal between the months of March and April, depending on where you were across the state. And that again fooled me for a wet spring, just like it did last year, which again gave me not accurate results for a bad fire season, but I continue to be thankful that that did not come true. Again, we actually saw consistent monthly rainfall all the way through June with, I believe, around an inch or so, both in Portland and LeGrand that month. And that also threw off my prediction for snow west of the Cascades. I didn't think we would see too much. I thought we would see 1 to 6 inches. No. We actually picked up 11 inches out at PDX. which I did not expect. Although January started the trend to dry up, it did not last for long, and that's why it gave us a lot more precipitation, snowfall than I was anticipating. Although I actually thought it was going to be drier in October, but that just did not come true. What did I do kind of well? Well, snowfall, depending on how you look at it. I actually thought that the snowiest part of the entire season will be between that transition month as we kind of transition into Enso neutral and when we start to cool off and dry out. And that actually did happen west of the Cascades. The last week of February, we actually got a surprise snowstorm, 5 to 15 inches generally, east side of the Portland metro, and it blanketed at least most of the area with a little bit of something. So that was a forecast check. Although east of the Cascades, no, we were actually pretty dry in that time frame. It wasn't until the month of March that snowpack skyrocketed, somewhere around 26 inches for the month out towards Cove. I think 13 inches of that within like a 24-hour period. So I'll give myself a half a check for that. And in terms of a near to below normal March and April, that absolutely happened in the temperature department, but did not in that precipitation department as we got that wet spring. But overall, 8 out of 13 correct. I would call that a really good success. 61.544%. I would actually say that every other outlook up until then was between 40 and 50%. So I would call that a great success. Okay, what about this winter? Well, it'll be our first El Nino in 5 years. All the analog years that I ran for this year actually averaged it to be a moderate El Nino, but that's based like 3 out of 4 of them being double La Ninas that we're coming out of, and we just came out of a third consecutive. So, although I think it's at least a slam dunk for a moderate El Nino, I definitely can't rule out the possibility for a strong one. I mean, it could be likely. In fact, NOAA predicts a 71% chance that will happen. But what does that mean? Well, the waters out towards the equator, down towards South America, are now much warmer than they usually are. And that typically brings that jet stream from the Pacific Northwest in the typical La Nina year all the way down to the southern states. And the stereotype for El Nino is typically drier and warmer, but that's not always the case, especially in the rainfall department where several years have brought above normal precipitation across the Pacific Northwest. Although I do think it will be more of a stereotypical El Nino this year. Why? Well, based on my analog years, 4 of them that I ran, I think we're going to be seeing 3 to 7 inches of less precipitation than we saw last October through this April, which that would be a significant difference. In fact, one of the analog years, 1976 through 77, according to the Western Regional Climate Center, they actually stated that this was the most extreme drought in Pacific Northwest history. That may have changed in recent years throughout the past decade, but the point is that is concern for this winter. Another analog year that I ran, 1951 through 52, it was okay getting into the following summer fire-wise, but right as it got into fall, according to the U.S. Forest Service, greatly above normal fire weather into that fall. So that's something that I'm eyeing for next summer. Maybe we have a worse fire season, but if we do, maybe that holds off until fall. So something to think about. What about snowfall? That's the big question. Well, this actually kind of surprised me. My averages that I ran for Portland, Hillsborough, and Corvallis actually gave me a mean of 3.1 inches of snow for this season. Although the odds of PDX getting another year, totaling 9 consecutive, of measurable snow I think is fairly slim. Although I think absolutely some of you will get maybe a couple inches of snow, no more than 5 though, but I think there will be a lot of you getting absolutely nothing. But if you're a snow lover like myself, don't give up hope yet. Part of the viewing area will get something, so be prepared for that. That precipitation in that October to April timeframe, only about 26 inches for the averages that I ran. Last year was about 32. We'll see. It could even be a little bit drier than that. For the Grand Ronde Valley, this actually surprised me in a whole different way. As I discussed, Cove got 70 inches of snow this past season. I don't expect that station to get above 30, closer to 10 out towards Union, with LeGrand somewhere in the middle with that mean of 20.9 inches. And that precipitation during that period, only about 7.5 inches. So what does this look like month by month? Well, I think October has a pretty decent chance of either being near normal in those temperatures and precipitation, or maybe slightly warmer and wetter than normal. I don't think it will be a washout by any means, but compared to all the other months of the winter and into spring, I think you'll find that it actually will be the wettest. November actually has a slight likelihood for being a little bit drier and warmer than normal. And honestly, if you average out my 4 analog years, your average first snowfall in the Grand Ronde Valley doesn't come till November 2nd. Not saying that it's not going to happen in October like it usually does, but there's a chance it could hold off till November, so keep an eye on that closely. Snow lovers, this is your headline for December. Best shot at winter. Generally, modeling thinks we're going to be somewhere near average to slightly above average, depending on which model you look at for the month of December in that precipitation. Well, really, temperatures, but analog years are loving a cold December. So although it's a wild card, I think if we were going to see the coldest temperatures of the season, if we're going to see the most amount of snow for the season, or even the best chance period for snow west of the Cascades, I think it would be December. But it's not a huge likelihood. Only half of my analog years brought Arctic air, meaning single digits west of the Cascades, negative digits east of the Cascades, and only one of those years brought a widespread snow event where everybody saw a little bit of snow across the Willamette Valley with some hefty 6, 7, 8 inch amounts in spots, while east of the Cascades and the Grand Ronde Valley actually saw 2 of those years. So yeah, 1.5 out of 4 of my analog years. Maybe you get a snowstorm in areas, be watching that closely, but definitely not anything significant, I do not think. In one of my analog years, 1951, in fact, December 4th, 1951, my birthday, actually brought a windstorm to the state of Oregon. Wind gusts between about 50 to 80 miles per hour. And although that's only one data set, that's something to be watched, because our last windstorm was all the way back in December 2014. So we may be due for one, to be completely honest with you. So watch for a potential windstorm this winter. Specifically in December, I think, is your best chance, along with the other wintry aspects, maybe. Keep an eye on that. Otherwise, 2024 comes around. Sorry, winter, you're out of here. But somewhere between January and February, I think will be the driest period of the entire month. I'm talking 1 to 4 inches below normal precipitation. And we'll start to notice that gradual increase in temperatures as well along with that. But I don't think we'll see the warmest temperatures until we hit somewhere between February and April, and that could average between about 2 to 5 degrees above normal. Although I'm really hanging my head over March. I'm just not sure the headline for March. I mean, the Canadian and European seasonal modeling do show that 2 to 5 degree above normal trend to continue through March. So I think that's the highest probability. Although the American models in half of my analog years want a surprisingly cold March. So although I don't think it's that likely, it's just something to think about. Maybe we'll see that surprise us. Otherwise, as a whole, the second half of the season is just not looking good to set up next summer. So all these graphics will be on my Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Rip City Weather, along with an extensive blog post on g-weather.com going into all the nitty-gritty details of all these points and why I think all of this will happen. So be sure to check that out. But for now, that is your forecast. Enjoy this fall and early winter because things are coming to a close.